The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Tuesdays here. It's Hail Varsity. You can find us on YouTube and the Hail Varsity Radio Network, Hail Varsity Twitter page at H Varsity Radio, Hail Varsity YouTube, and then the network. Get in at 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. A lot to get into. We'll hear from Isaac Gifford. The right tone heading into Nebraska, Ohio State. You had players and assistants meet the media today. The coordinators talked. One of those coordinators being Marcus Satterfield. What did Sat say? We'll have some of that for you here in just a bit. We'll spend some time with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic and Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch with us in about 20 minutes, a little less than. And then in hour two, Michael Bruntz with Husker 24/7. Going to join us, and we'll spend some time with Papa Sirles, Jeremiah Sirles. His thoughts on Indiana, his thoughts looming forward towards Ohio State. 489-1240. Interesting article with The Athletic today, kind of an overview of Big Ten football, and you've got three tiers, and this might bring you back to a former Nebraska defensive coordinator when we talk about sinking and floating. But the way the teams were tiered, teams that are sinking, teams that are floating, teams that are sailing right now, and Nebraska is not in the floating category. At 5-2 right now, they haven't quite sunk, but Saturday definitely smarts, and then this Saturday perceived to hurt even worse. Elijah, you've got Nebraska fans still upset from the loss to Indiana, the way it went down, the physical domination, and then you've got doom and gloom that is set in because of who you're going to face. These weeks, when you join the Big Ten, were supposed to be just hyped, exciting, incredible weeks. And Nebraska's had their share early in league play of moments where it's two top 10 team matchups. Nebraska's a far cry from that. We know that it's coach and coaching staff number 4 or 5, and it's another monster Vegas line against the Big Red. So the excitement levels meant zero. Even if you would have lost to Indiana, it would have been dampered. But the fact you're going from the outhouse to what's worse than the outhouse, I guess a hole in the ground, if you're Nebraska, just zero buzz here. It's more funeral feeling because of just where this team might be at. And it kind of leads me into what does Saturday need to look like to you? What is success in Columbus? I'm not putting a win out there. I'm not stupid just because of the talent differential, but also where Nebraska has said they're pissed off. Great. We'll hear from Isaac Gifford. Well, we know Ohio State is. And they've had a week to be steamed coming off of a bye week with the 1-point loss to Oregon on the road. They're going to come out trying to make a statement. Nebraska's statement is, we're going to fight. That's what the statement needs to be. That's what the action needs to show. Meanwhile, Ohio State's ready to drop a nuke as they gear up for Penn State.
And I think it's funeral feeling this week because we're going to be in Columbus, obviously. We do this for a living. But if I was just an average Joe out there watching this game and someone texted me today, it's like, hey, I got a tee time for 12:30 on Saturday. You in? Yeah.
No, you're totally in because you're going to keep an eye on it, but you're going to go enjoy 74 degrees and sunshine with minimal wind.
And that's what's horrific about this because Husker football is supposed to give you something to do on 12 Saturdays a year, and you're already shoveling dirt on, maybe not this program, but this game on Saturday. That's what sucks.
Not the program at all, but the game.
The game. You don't want to see what it's going to be. You've seen this same story before where it's Ohio State's coming to town or you're going to Columbus, and you say, well, maybe. This doesn't even feel like a year where anyone is saying, well, if everything goes right, maybe they stand a chance. No, that's not what it feels like this year, and that is just extra heartbreaking.
They can go play well, and that's even hard to spit out because they haven't played well on both sides of the football and in the special teams phase. I can say more times than not the defense has played well, and they played well against who's been on their schedule. This is a whole different beast.
Well, remember back to 2020, whenever you open the year in Columbus, That's
opening drive. Hey, it's 7-0. Woohoo!
That's kind of what it feels like to me this year, where it's like you could go play well and still go lose 52-20.
Right. I mean, you're well versus just getting flat out beat by a better football team and dominated. It's going to blur. So
you got beat by 49 playing poorly against a team with a first-year head coach. I know people are going to say Indiana's got more talent than the average team with a first-year head coach. That's true. That being said, it is still Indiana. It's still a team full of guys that were FCS guys. I think it was about 50% of the offensive production and like 40% of the defensive production, something like that, was James Madison transfers. Like, this is no discredit to James Madison, but there's a reason they started their career at the FCS level.
Under-recruited.
Signetti did a hell of a job developing those guys, getting them up to a level where they can go compete in the Big Ten. That's a hat tip to them. But you played poorly and lost by 49. Ohio State is a team that you can play well and lose by 49 against. That's who they are. That's how good they are. Talent on both sides of the ball. NFL talent on both sides of the ball. First-round picks galore. That's what Ohio State is. You can go play well and lose by 49. That's the cold reality of this week.
Well, the quest for Saturday is going to be, what are you? You shouldn't be asking this question several weeks in. We'll get to our starting five and our stream comments. As Anonymous checks in, if we get up 7-0, we should do what Lee Corso did, call timeout, take a team picture in front of the scoreboard. Jim Walden did that, too, at the end of the Nebraska-Iowa State infamous 19-10 ball game. But in all seriousness, Anonymous, thanks for the chime in. Find out what you can do on offense. And, learning on the fly or on the job in Columbus on a Saturday big noon audience, Gus may try and jump out of the booth so he didn't have to call it again. I don't know if Nebraska fans can take 2 weeks of Gus in a row, gushing of the other team, but it's Nebraska's job to stop that commentary, let alone the trek between the 20s into the end zone. But give me something moving forward on offense. If I'm Nebraska, we'll hear from Sat in a moment. Comments specifically about the run game. He was asked how can he do better with the ground game, and I applaud his honesty, but you don't necessarily like the answer coming from your offensive coordinator when it comes to that commitment to the run game. Nebraska, if they allow time for Dylan, they've got to try and find some big plays. That's obvious. That helps the drive. That helps your scoring. But Nebraska's big play ability has just dissipated since the Illinois game. Who's okay? Nobody.
Just had a question about yesterday's show. Didn't want to go on the air.
Let's get to our starting five comments. Justin is in first. Justin, thank you. The other Dave is here. Jeff Snitley in, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Walter in. He's got a hashtag that's popular right now towards the Nebraska offensive coordinator. Bruce from Spearfish is in. So Snitley does follow up and say, look, I didn't subject myself to listening to the entire Satterfield presser today. I only listened to a few bits, but how and why did we make this guy the 20th highest paid OC in the country? It's a question that's out there. He's taken a lot of arrows. The offense is ranked 90th. That's not a good ROI, if you ask me, and he doesn't sound too confident he's going to be able to fix it. Donnie Trump is in. Grateful Red is here. I finally worked through Saturday's hangover. Started applying the Preparation H yesterday for Saturday's game. Grateful Red, you keep medicating, brother. Eric, NASCAR Eric is in. Moonbot is here, says, howdy, nerds. Eric says, is the sky falling? It's raining bricks. Eric, it's raining bricks. The other Snitley is here. Wants more RPO or quarterback run threat. Bo's Cat, that's a first-timer. Bo's Cat says, meow the fans. Dave is here. $1.4 million a year JFC. I love you guys in the stream. It's good. Captain is here. Good to have you, Captain. Dave is in. Great Red Shark is here. Nebraska game total Saturday's 10.5. Over, under, 125 minus 145 for the under. I don't know how they get to 10, but this offense should get to double digits every game.
Okay. I see what you're saying now. I thought you said they should get to double digits on Saturday.
No, I don't. It's going to be a struggle.
A realistic fan expectation is that any competent offense should get to 10 no matter who the opponent is. Is that what you're saying?
I think you need to be able to score 20 points in college football.
Yes.
As an offense.
Yes, I'm with you.
At a minimal.
Yes.
All right. And feast on the teams that you pay to come in here. Brian checks in. Sat doesn't exude confidence anytime he talks at a presser. His lack of confidence shows on that side of the ball compared to White's defense over 19 games. Let's hear from Sat. Let's get to this. We'll hear from Isaac Gifford as well. But when it comes to the perimeter blocking issues, we'll start there. We'll work our way through the run game. We'll work our way to downfield passing, that threat that was evident in the offense early. But Sat on perimeter blocking here earlier today.
We knew and know we have an issue that we have to continue to improve. We've attacked it. That's the bad stuff. The bad thing is being reactionary, which I was reactionary to it. I saw it the whole time, and I needed to get out in front of it. But the last 2 weeks we've been working extremely hard on it. I think it's getting better and better and better. Hopefully, as we go through the season, it becomes a weapon for us.
Okay, it might become a weapon. Hopefully. I mean, you either give up or you keep working, and I don't like quitting. But the work hasn't shown up yet. When will it show up with the downfield blocking? How about downfield passing? That was something that early in the season, before you had game film, Elijah, you were able to get the ball to Nair and Banks. That's been shut off quite a bit, but you've drawn a lot of pass interference penalties for 15 yards or spot fouls. More from Sat here on the downfield passing threat where it's been.
Yeah, but again, just the timing. There was a couple of them where there were receivers open, but Dylan had to move left and right, so he kind of got his eyes off of it. And by the time you get your eyes up, everything's moving really fast. He just checked it down. I'm extremely happy with the check downs for a young quarterback like that. But it was just timing. Sometimes your timing is off, and it just, between Dylan, the tight end, the running back, and the receivers, it just did not gel up, the way that we expected it to.
Well, takes a while to gel, but it needs to be sooner rather than later. Jay is in, invoking Animal House, remain calm, all is well. Walter says, I'm always peed off. Moonbot says, I want to make a statement. Huskers win 27-24. Moonbot, that is a statement. That is a statement.
I'm not sure what's more far-fetched, Nebraska scoring 24 points or Nebraska's defense only allowing 24.
Right. Let's get to the run game. We'll get into this with Mitch Sherman. Cut 6 on the need for more of a commitment to the run game from Satterfield earlier today.
Yeah, I think it's a lot on me. I have to commit to it. I think that I've gotten, we're really good getting the ball to Ja'Cory and the receivers and reverses and perimeter and all that stuff, which is weird because of our perimeter blocking, but that's been one of our strong things this year is our perimeter runs. I've got to make sure I get in the mindset of you have to, in order to win in this league, establish the run game. And so, through the bye week and through this past week, I think that, we're going to work towards getting back to that for sure.
Okay. It's his own mindset. It's a preference. And it'd be nice to know if there's just not been the good old college try enough on this, Elijah, to keep at it. Keep at it with the run game because it's not popped. So let's go to our 5-star quarterback and these new toys that came in out of the portal at wide receiver, and let's start chucking the ball around.
Well, and I think for about 3-4 weeks during the season, you did feel better about what Dylan Raiola posed in terms of being a threat to the defense when compared to the rushing attack. Not anymore.
No, because it's a one-man band.
Well, because defenses have adjusted now and said,
yeah,
we're not scared of your ability to run the football, therefore we're going to key in on the passing attack and try to beat us hat on a hat. Nebraska's been unable to do so.
Going to line up and tee off on you. More from Satterfield. Isaac Gifford had a tone about him today that you want. You want everyone traveling to Columbus wearing that red end to take with them. Mitch Sherman coming up, but we'll dive into it a little further here. Walter says, better chance I get a date with Sydney Sweeney than Nebraska scoring 20 on Saturday. Good luck, Walter. Mitch Sherman's on the way.
Cheering for you, Walter.
It's Hail Varsity.
It's that time.
Psst. Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. Find us on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. You read Mitch Sherman with The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. You hear him with the Locked On Nebraska pod. Awesome listen every morning for you. Mitch, how we doing? Good to spend some time. Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing well. How are you, Schmidt and Elijah?
We're good, man. We are packing the bags for Columbus. And
all right.
Yeah, that'll be the road trip before we go to Iowa City. We're toying with Bloomington. We didn't go to Bloomington.
I'm going to L.A.
Yeah, have fun with that.
Yeah.
But what do you make of the week that's been? The blowout loss and then the opportunity, but the uncertainty about bouncing back against a squad like Ohio State.
Yeah, it's been a week like we've not experienced with Matt Rule in charge. Both the game, I think, and I think the days after. Mm-hmm. It's been interesting to hear their responses the last couple of days. I think they've said what they need to say. I don't know that a lot of people are necessarily gaining a lot of comfort from what we've heard, just not because it's the wrong thing to say, but really because there isn't necessarily a right thing to say. It has to be seen, I think, on the field. And I don't know what that realistically looks like against Ohio State. There's one thing that you can say with certainty is there's not an opponent on Nebraska's schedule that requires the Huskers to more quickly bounce back and regain their focus than what Ohio State requires. And maybe that'll be something that can kind of shake Nebraska free of whatever kind of mental situation would hold it back after a loss like that. And that's a loss that a lot of the players in this program have never experienced at the collegiate level, at the high school level, or wherever they've been. So I'm a little bit just kind of taking this in. I don't necessarily have any great observations or any great takes. It's a little bit of uncharted territory. I mean, and people are saying yes. People are saying that Nebraska's lost big before, but I haven't had one, or I haven't been around one, in the last 20 years. You can go back to Texas Tech in 2004, but haven't really been around one that took on this kind of a feeling. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Nebraska responds to it on Saturday in Columbus, and really beyond that, how it responds when things get going in November.
Mitch, I loved your column on Saturday night, the theme of which was essentially a loss like that against Indiana makes you question everything. That was the theme. What is something that you have questions about now that you did not have questions about on, say, Friday afternoon? What changed in your eyes following the Indiana game?
I think you have to question the process. And I understand it's one game out of 19 that Matt Rule has coached, but when you see that and you see a team coming off of a bye like Nebraska was, and playing an opponent in Indiana that has had less time to build, and the outcome is what we saw. I don't know. It was 56-7, whatever. It could have been 42-7. Like, I'm not going to get caught up in the, well, it looked worse because Nebraska played a certain style in the second half, and admirably, if you want to paint it that way, didn't just check out and didn't start running the ball into the line and running clock. That's fine. 42-7, 42-10, like same result. They were outplayed, outcoached, outperformed, outprepared in every way. And to me, that causes questions to be raised about just, for lack of a better way to describe it, what's going on here? Like, we hear all the right things in the off season and Sunday through Friday, but where was it at on Saturday? Like, this was, as Matt Rule said before the game, perhaps the biggest game that they've played at Nebraska under Matt Rule, and that's what showed up. It just makes me question everything that I thought that I knew, and I'm not. I'm not suggesting that this won't work, but I think you have to wonder. You have to wonder if there's going to need to be major adjustments. Like, you have to look at what's going on with the offense. I look at the offense before I look at the defense, but the defense didn't stop anybody on Saturday. So I think it's healthy to just examine every aspect of the program, at least the product that's out there on the field, and ask yourself the question of if internally, is there a better way to do this?
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic, Hail Varsity Radio, the Locked On Nebraska podcast with Mitch at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. And the way you put that was well done with the questioning, and you want to find the right answers if you're Matt Rule and the players, absolutely, and try and bounce back and go put a better effort forth on Saturday against a Goliath. Let's focus in on the offense, and we play a little bit of Coach Satterfield before you came on, Mitch, with just his comment and admission today about himself looking in the mirror about committing to more of the run game, and that's all well and good. What do you think is the internal tug of war there from keeping you from committing to the run game?
Oh, it might be his knowledge of what Nebraska has in the run game. They've talked for quite a while. Go through this season, through camp before the season, about the desire to have a back who stood out. And while they have capable backs, or seemingly capable backs, I mean, these are players that I think in the right situation can thrive. All of these guys, four or five backs who can do nice things, but nobody's pulling away, nobody's separating themselves, nobody is proving to be an answer, a complete player within the framework of this system. And if you see someone who's not hitting home runs for Nebraska at running back, that doesn't mean that it's entirely on them. I mean, you have to have blocks. You have to have the threat of other pieces of the offense. Like football is not one-on-one. Although we heard that from Marquise Buford today, that it's 11 on 11, and you have to focus on winning your one-on-one. I think on the offensive side of the ball, even more so, or at least in this conversation about the running game, it's an 11-man situation, and it's not just that, hey, the running backs aren't giving Nebraska the kind of production that they need. It's the offense isn't allowing Nebraska to get the kind of production it needs in the running game. And I think some of where Satterfield's coming from with his decisions that he makes in calling games is based on the understanding that Nebraska isn't a great running team. If he had a great running back and he had the ability to call plays and produce with a running game, I think you'd see him more apt to do that. That doesn't mean that he's doing everything right. He certainly is not. And I think they need to be more committed to trying to make it work. And that's Monday through Friday, and that's trying to commit to it on Saturday too. So the way that the game started last week, with Nebraska getting the ball at the 1 yard line, digging itself a couple of yards out, and then immediately going to the air on 8 consecutive plays over 2 drives when the score was 7-0. It speaks to a lack of confidence in the run game, and at least it was something that he addressed today. At least it was something where he came out and said, I need to do a better job of being committed to the run game. And you have to wonder why they're 7 games in, and that's still something they're grappling with.
Yeah, Mitch, an average college football team gets better as the year goes on. I think you can look at a lot of different programs around the country. Colorado's a great example. You can look at UCLA. They seem to be finding their footing as the year goes on. Wisconsin seems to be getting better despite a whole bunch of losses. Nebraska seems to be swimming in mud. They're not moving very far forward if there is any offensive progression. What does an improved offensive performance look like to you moving forward, especially against Ohio State, which might be the best defense you play all year long?
Yeah, moving the chains, getting first down, start with small things. In the passing game, finding receivers who are open downfield. Not everything has to be a check down, and they praise Dylan Raiola for his ability to check the ball down, and that's great. I mean, it's better than getting negative yards or getting or throwing incompletions or turning the ball over, which they did 5 times on Saturday at Indiana. But this is an offense, I think, with the system that they have in place, a passing offense where they have to be able to throw the ball down the field. And we thought early in the year, and I still think that they have pieces that where that can work. It wasn't connecting in this game last week. It didn't connect in the second half very often against Rutgers when Nebraska was shut out in the final 2 quarters. There's been too many dead periods for this offense, and the entire game, save 1 drive or maybe 2 drives, were dead periods Saturday at Indiana. Really, it just kind of all went off the rails. I mean, it snowballed, and we've been talking about it since Saturday. I do think on some level, there's the possibility that what happened out there was an anomaly, and that there's a different Nebraska team that's in there somewhere, and they have to find it. I don't know how they find it against Ohio State coming off that performance, and this is why you play the games, because you don't know the outcomes until they play them. But if there's been a more assured result, a more likely result going into a game in recent years, I'm not sure what it was. And Nebraska's played these kind of games before. They've played Ohio State and Michigan, where you walked into it feeling that there wasn't much any doubt about the outcome. This is right near the top of the list of one of those games.
Mitch Sherman with us. Mitch, we'll try and bump into you in Columbus, and always love your insight, man. Keep up the amazing work with the pod and, of course, with The Athletic. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Okay, look forward to seeing you guys. Take care. Thanks.
All right, there he is, Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic. Could spend another hour with Mitch. Good to spend a few minutes with him. We'll get to more of your comments here on the stream. 489-1240, open phones here till 5. You want to jump in, 800-825-5865, toll free along the Hail Varsity Radio Network. And, it is a two-sided coin. Yeah, run the football, be willing to run the football. If it's not what you want initially, don't abandon the run. In the same sense, you're not rocking it for great yards per carry. You weren't against Rutgers, struggled mightily against Illinois, and it was non-existent against Indiana, but you got down and you started playing chuck and duck. More from Satterfield. Isaac Gifford weighs in. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
You just caught part of that Mitch Sherman sit-down or want to hear it again, get to the podcast page, Hail Varsity Radio. Like and subscribe. Give us a rating. Good, bad, or ugly. We'll take it. Hail Varsity Radio when you search. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter. Montana Husker is in. Great Red Shark is here. Redwine 65. Mikey Mike checking in as well. A little bit more from Satterfield. Been invited. You're going to be in L.A., Elijah.
Yeah, I am.
But I'll be at Ameristar that Friday, the 15th of November. And my dear friends, Nate and Katie, have said, guess what we're doing? We're crashing at Ameristar. You're going to gamble all night.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, dear God. Well, we talked about it, Schmitty, with my strategy on Friday.
Yeah.
Which was 2 total hands of blackjack.
You walked in, put $60 down, doubled it, went and did the show, walked back to the same dealer, wearing a Mahomes jersey. Not you, but the dealer.
Was it Kelsey?
I don't know. It was his Chiefs jersey.
Yeah.
But you put down your winnings. You beat the house again. You made a cool $200 or right around there.
And got out.
And you got out. One hand.
It's because, well,
it's a full table, too.
The longer you play in a casino, and this is just mathematically a fact, the lower your odds are. So you go just play a couple hands. It's my strategy. It's probably not for everybody.
No,
but it works well for me.
I want your results.
If you're there all night,
I want your results with the $200 bill.
We do have to talk about the fact that it's now back-to-back Hail Varsity Radio parlays that we've done 3 for 4. Do we lower it down to just 3 legs next time?
That payout would have been $750.
And Louisville gave it a hell of a go against Miami. They really did. They had the scoop and score to tie it up, and it got called back because the guy hadn't completed the process of the catch, and it was called incomplete. But man, we were close. That's back-to-back.
I want to dive into this run game dilemma. All right, and can chime in 489-1240 or jump in the stream Hail Varsity YouTube. Do you blame Sat for not running the ball more? Or do you say the weapon of choice is to just chuck it and you're taking what are we going to say? Not even a knife to a gunfight on offense. If you're one-dimensional with a freshman quarterback and guys that don't always get open.
I'll say I blame.
And the big elephant here is the offensive line consistency.
Yeah, I'll say I blame Sat for weeks now, calling the same running plays that have not been working.
Expecting them to pop.
That's what it feels like with this rushing attacks. It feels like you're smashing your head into a brick wall with the same rushing plays that aren't working. And it's late in the season. It's hard to go scheme up a new offense.
So it's a creativity thing.
But yes, that is my issue with it. And I said that after the Rutgers game with that second half. Where's the creativity?
You're not running it well between the tackles. The adjustments that you've seen occasionally has been Harburg to come in and run a sprint option. You've seen Liebentritt at fullback. You've seen some counter, and you've tried to go heavy. You've had a heavy formation that has got you some yards when you don't fumble on short yardage situations. So that's not creativity. That's just going heavy and executing. You've seen some wing-back reverse or some H-back cross-buck type actions that have scored you your last 2 touchdowns between Bonner and then Barney. So there's that form of misdirection, but there's not 2 backs. There's not much draw. The counter is what Nebraska does run best when they run it. So it's chicken or egg here. We're arguing. The body blow part, to me, is why you slam your head into the wall and try and eke out 2 or 3 or 4 yards on first down. You get good at being physical on first down, but you keep that physicality for 4 quarters. Nebraska's not done that offensively. They've tried to open it up, or they get cute, and what I mean by cute is they just start calling pass plays. He wants both to work. He wants it to be an NFL offense where you can throw it and you can run it. While guys are getting paid now, you're a far cry from the level of a 53-man roster. Exactly. Who's on the horn with us? Dennis, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling. Go for it.
So why aren't they using Harburg as either a running back or a receiver because of his size?
As an H-back, that's a great question as an H-back, but as a running back.
I know they're keeping him as a backup quarterback, but he's the best guy they got that could be a running back or a receiver.
I don't think Harburg's a better running back than Emmett Johnson.
But I will say, to give you credit, Dennis, Matt Rule asked the same question. Go back and listen to his Monday press conference during the bye week. He asked the same question about Harburg's usage and said that was one of the things they wanted to focus on in the bye week was finding a way to get him more involved in the offense.
And yet they don't.
Yeah, you saw Harburg go in and get about 8 or 9 yards and then go back to the sideline last week.
With his size, he could be busting tackles. They're not even trying.
There needs to be some adjustment. I don't know that, Dennis, I like the idea to use Harburg. I like him as an H-back or at least put him in at quarterback to run some zone read.
I loved getting him more involved in the offense. I'm not sure putting him at straight running back would be the solution.
We're not going to see a reincarnation of Larry Zonka.
But I do think you need to get him more involved in the offense, and Matt Rule said as much during the bye week.
He could protect the quarterback. Because nobody's protecting the quarterback.
If he's your number 2 quarterback, are you putting your number 2 in to block a blitzing safety?
Yeah, but you've got.
I'm just answering. I'm answering with a question. What'd you say?
You could put in the kid from West Side. I know they don't want to burn a red shirt, but it's stupid.
Oh, well, I don't think I don't think the problem's who your starting quarterback is. It's everybody else around him.
You know, because you know that our quarterback is not going to be here for 4 years.
We'll see.
I mean, he might be here for 3, but there's no way in the world he's here for 4.
Based on how he's playing for this season, I'm not sure NFL is
don't.
3.
Well, I thought you were going somewhere else. Dennis, thank you for the phone call. Appreciate you listening. And
yep.
Harburg, the usage, right? But I mean, you can ask Heinrich to put on the Superman cape, but it gets down to the run game and its success. And is he going to make that run game better? Well, at quarterback, that element of it does. But the problem is you've got a guy that's won the job. So who's with us?
We go to Pete for the last 60 seconds.
Pete, go for it, bud. Thanks for calling.
How you doing?
We're all right. What do you say?
Well, I don't think anything's going to get better until they hold the players accountable. If you're a wide receiver and you're supposed to block and you don't block, get off the field and find somebody else that's going to block.
Yep.
It needs to be that way across the board. And on defense, it's no different. If you're supposed to play the A-gap and you're not in the A-gap, then get the hell off the floor or off the field. Get somebody else that's going to be in that A-gap. You cannot play players just because they have a high paycheck. You have to play players that are going to do their job.
Well, I'm
sick and tired.
I think the scary part of that question is, are the guys behind them, do you have any more confidence in them being able to go get the job done? That's the scary part of that question.
Well, it might be scary, but how do you know?
Yeah,
you still see the same students in there that don't block. You still see linemen that let people right through. You see defensive players that don't fill their gaps that they're supposed to. Nothing's going to work until you get in the right positions.
Pete, thank you, bud.
It's fundamental football. We need to get back to it.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, can sneak in another phone call at 489-1240. Do you keep calling run plays? You think you got to? More from Sat on how you fix the running situation. Can you fix it Saturday at OHIO Stadium?
I think just a matter of making sure that, I feel like we got the runs and the proper formations and personnel that we can hand the ball off and get 3 or 4 yards. Like, I don't want to hand it off and just be stupid and hard-headed and say, let's run at this big defensive line and get a yard just to say I ran the ball and it's 2nd and 9. So I just have to develop trust myself and make sure that I'm getting the proper plays called where we can attack the proper edges to fall for 4 or 5 yards. And then eventually, make a guy miss and go, have an explosive run.
At the eject button, right? How quickly do you hit it? And at times, Nebraska's hit the eject button on the run game, despite its minimal success too soon. You want efficiency, man. right? And one game that comes back to mind, and Joe Burrow and the Bengals, the year they went to the Super Bowl, they're the only team to really have the Chiefs' number. They played well against Kansas City overall. I think he's 3-2 career-wise. And old Zach Taylor kept calling the old stretch to the edge, and then you cut it back, and it was 2nd and 7, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 7 all day that day in Arrowhead. It was a cold day. But he didn't ever waver from the run game. And 2nd and 7 turned into 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. And guess what? Cincinnati stayed on the field. Stayed on the field a bit. And problem is when Nebraska is thrown on first down, a lot of times they've tried to go short. That's been a 0 to negative play. Or they run it, and it's a minimal gain. Or in the drives that they've been successful and actually scored, they've ran it enough and at times well on first down where it's 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5. But there's just not any consistency, and we get back to that stupid identity topic that is very real because you're just grasping right now. You're trying to find something that's going to work, and what has worked has been tempo.
Well, and you combine what you're saying with the fact that the book is already out on how you slow down this Husker offense.
Mm-hmm. So you need to adjust or come up with something new.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Have a game plan that's new or something they haven't seen, or maybe they're not in your top A, B, or C. Here's what they could do. Plan Monday through Thursday. And Nebraska just goes about their business. We'll hear a little bit from Isaac Gifford. Next hour, Michael Bruntz going to join us from Husker 24/7 Sports. And then Papa Sirles will sound off, get his take on last Saturday, this Saturday, as Jeremiah Sirles, former Husker standout and longtime NFLer, going to be with us. So stick around for that. More emails coming in, chris@hailvarsity.com. And always invite you to check us out on a couple of different platforms, Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio Network, and give us a follow on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Find Elijah at Herbal Essence, myself, Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio. On Twitter, we have quite the fight going on in the stream between the captain and Great Red Shark, as they are not friends. But I appreciate you all going. Black Hills Brennan says more Oklahoma drill. All good. And we'll get you to hour 2. Hail Varsity here on a Tuesday. HailVarsity.com.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my first ass whooping. You only get one option, and that's to keep going, right? Keep fighting. Just go back to your process and keep going.
Keep on, keep it on. That's Isaac Gifford, not his first A-whooping. And we welcome in Michael Bruntz with Husker 24/7 Sports, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Bruntsy, that's not the first butt-whooping you've had to cover, correct?
I've covered my fair share. No, and does the FCC do they look dimly on that phrase or no? Are we good to?
Well, we can't have Bruntsy do his Andrew Dice Clay rendition like you do during happy hour. Little Miss Muffet.
It was my understanding that Isaac Gifford was referring to a donkey.
Yes,
got it. Okay.
Yes, right.
Yep.
Sure. Thank you. Bruntsy, what do you think, man? We're loading up the old truckster for Columbus. Are you going this weekend again?
I will be there.
Yeehaw. We're all going to have have a post-game beverage or several. But
do they do? Are they one of the schools that does a post-game beer from the press box?
I don't know. Do they? Do they hand out beers in the presser?
They do not. I believe it's Illinois. I'm trying to think where I've had this. Illinois, Colorado, Indiana. There was some in the press box, but I don't know if it was official or if it was like
Sorry,
somebody
dudes.
had
Here you go.
some contraband type stuff, or maybe a leftover from the suites upstairs. But there was a little bit of that going on too. But I do not believe Ohio State does that.
So this could be a BYOB Saturday?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably if you want to go that route, you could.
Well, whiskey, Elijah, and I'll bring the beer, and we'll have enough for Bruntz. And is BC going with you again?
Yeah, we're both going, so we'll be there ready to go.
Yeehaw! Okay,
You sound excited.
What'd you make of Sat today? We spent a lot of time talking about the run game dedication.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a concern, and I think it's a self-criticism that's valid. I mean, when you talk about being a physical team and, wanting to be built around a strong run game, and I know they were backed up on that first possession, but when you throw that many times on the first couple trips on offense, I mean, it would seem to run counter to what you're trying to do. So, they had not been able to get enough done on the ground in 3 of the last 4 games, and I think part of it is, they just seem to abandon it pretty quickly. So, yeah, I mean, I thought he was spot on, and now I think if you're in his shoes, it's a matter of trying to find anything that you can do consistently on offense. I mean, I thought Matt Rule was pretty spot on Saturday after that game when he said that that nothing is easy for that offense right now, and that's a little bit scary when you're 7 games into this thing.
Do you think it's – how should I put this? It's a conversation we've had, kind of the conversation of if you're Sat, what do you call? Do you think what Sat is calling does not line up with the strengths of the players he has on the field, or do you think it's just an issue of players going out there and not executing? And it could be a little chicken or the egg with this discussion, but what do you pinpoint as the big issue offensively?
I think it's both. I mean, I think, when you don't have the quarterback run game, you have to be able to drive teams, the opposing defenses out of the box with the short, quick passing game, stuff to the outside. And, right now, this is not a team that can block that with any kind of consistency. And, right now, Nebraska does not have guys on the outside that are winning one-on-ones against press coverage. That's something that Matt Rule has been talking about going back to last spring. So if you don't have guys winning one-on-ones, you don't have a consistent run game, you're not able to chase guys, opposing defenses out of the box. I mean, it's kind of tough to find something to kind of hang your hat on there, and that's a concern. I mean, you have a quarterback who's very talented. And, all offseason, I felt like we talked about how Nebraska was better around him and it had improved around him, but it's not showing up on the field right now. So, I mean, I think it's kind of like you're kind of doing some deep soul searching over there on what can be relied on offense, because it looks okay at times, and then, it certainly doesn't at others, and that's not a good place to be.
Michael Bruntz with us, Husker 24/7 Sports, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. With your message boards and your listenership with the Hypecast, your podcast, Bruntz, what's the level of panic that you're getting back from the Husker fan base? Not just from last Saturday, but going into this Saturday, like the unsteadiness or uneasiness of the rest of the season, kind of that conversation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's easy to kind of go to a dark place with it. I think a lot of people were expecting a competitive game against Indiana. I don't think anybody was in their right minds would have predicted what the final score ended up being. And, I think, what you kind of said earlier to start with, I mean, there's a familiar feeling to it, right? And, it's going to be on this coaching staff to see if they can kind of, make sure that it's just a little bit of turbulence and not a full-on tailspin. So, I think there's legitimate concerns right now about the direction of the offense. I mean, special teams obviously is an issue and has been all season. I I think there's a little bit more confidence on the part of the defense being able to kind of right the ship. But, you're starting to see some similar issues to what there were last season. And I think that's definitely a source of concern.
It's Michael Bruntz with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, as we talk Nebraska, Indiana, put a bow on it, begin looking ahead to Nebraska and Ohio State, dear God. And Michael, whenever you talk about this game, a lot of the arrows have been pointed at Satterfield, rightfully so. But we also heard from Tony White today, and he kind of pointed the thumb at himself for that defensive performance on Saturday. What did you make of that? Do you think that Coach White should also be shouldering some of the blame from Saturday? I mean, 56 points is a lot to give up.
Yeah, I mean, 56 points is a lot to give up, and the standard that he has set since he came to Nebraska was nowhere close to what you saw against Indiana. I mean, Indiana has a good scheme. They've got talent. They've got a veteran quarterback. But at the same time, I mean, at some point as a defense, you have to find a way to win a one-on-one as a defensive back. You have to get off a block and make a tackle. And it just felt like that there was a little bit of the dancing bear routine going on where you weren't really playing aggressive. I mean, maybe a handful, one or two plays in that game defensively that you kind of point to as like, okay, that looked like it was supposed to. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it was just kind of an all-around stinker for everybody. And, I think the hope with the defense is you have so many veteran guys on that side of the ball that it's going to be kind of a quick rebound. Guys obviously should hopefully take some pride in the fact that they got their tails whipped and, come out and get ready for an Ohio State team where you're going to have to be at your best just to be in the conversation. So I think I agreed with what he said today. The tackling was a concern too, but I just feel like there's just the way forward on that side of the ball long term for the rest of the season is a little bit more clear to me than what it is on the offensive side of the ball right now.
When we look at Nebraska trying to fix, improve, get better, and then come back, you've got that veteran presence you talked about. You also have that veteran presence that Jamari Butler kind of spoke about. He's one of those veterans where when adversity hits, it's not a good thing for this football team. Mm-hmm. And is that going to be ongoing Saturday and beyond for this season? The PTSD, for lack of a better term, Bruntz, or do you think someone young or old finally steps up and stops it when things get rough? They started out on fire against Colorado. Great, but any other time, and this goes beyond the last 19 games for Rule. I mean, it goes back decades. When it goes sideways, it really craters.
Yeah, and that's kind of the tough part, I think, for this coaching staff in some ways, is it's like, okay, everything that happened and the trauma, to use the metaphor, I mean, a lot of it's not on their tab, but unfortunately you're kind of having to pay for it. And, I think, it was a little bit concerning, I think, after the Indiana game to hear a veteran defender say that when you got down early, that it was kind of like, okay, here we go again. I do think that, that when you look at the numbers going into that game against Indiana, I mean, Nebraska had really not played from behind a lot at all this season. And that was an interesting data point, I guess, about how, I guess where kind of the mental makeup of this team is right now. And, I think if you're going to, kind of right the ship here going into the last half of the season, it's going to have to be that defense that's going to carry you a little bit. So hopefully they get that figured out a little bit. But, yeah, I think that was – I mean, I think everybody could see what was happening, and I think he's correct about, the kind of, oh, here we go again. I mean, you can kind of feel it in the stadium. But at some point, you need one of those veteran guys to make a play, and that just wasn't happening.
Bruntz, with the here we go again mentality, you look at another potential, as Isaac Gifford said, whooping against Ohio State potentially coming up. Wouldn't be the first. Do you worry about that, oh, here we go again mentality creeping into the team with you only one game away from bowl eligibility and some difficult tasks to end the season coming up? Because that's where my mind goes. What is the mental makeup of this team if they go into Columbus and get their butts whooped again?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. And, I mean, you've got another bye week to kind of sort through some things. But, I mean, I'm sure that there's players in that locker room that, not even thinking back to previous coaching regimes. But, I mean, I'm sure a lot of those guys remember what November felt like last year when, things were set up pretty well for Nebraska to get to a bowl game and they weren't able to get the job done. I mean, I think that's as much as part of the here we go again as anything that happened prior to Matt Rule coming to Nebraska. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's still to be determined. But, it's when we talk about the offense and finding things that you can rely on and the defense just making plays, I mean, it's at some point you kind of have to just get past the mental blocks and make plays, get off blocks and tackle. I mean, it's a pretty simple game that way.
What, if anything, do you scheme up, draw up, do if you're Tony White, knowing that the defense has got to do some heavy lifting? They don't like the blood that's still on their jersey. And Tony was pretty adamant about some of his game plan, didn't like it, and he wants to do better clearly on Saturday. So knowing that this is a strength, the defense, what can you do? Obviously, yes, you stop the run first, easier said than done, but how do you screw with Ohio State for a little bit anyway defensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just kind of have to muck it up. I mean, you've got to make it an ugly game as much as you possibly can if you're Nebraska's defense. I mean, the problem with the Indiana game was, Indiana's pretty balanced, and I think Ohio State can be too. But Nebraska didn't take anything away from Indiana. I mean, they were running through huge holes. The passing game was on point. And I think if you're Nebraska, you need to be able to at least get Ohio State to, third downs and give yourself a chance to get off the field. I mean, it's going to look a little bit different from Ohio State than maybe what I think, Nebraska fans who don't see them often are kind of used to. I mean, I think they're going to try to get downhill a little bit more. So it's going to be a big game for the front seven. And, it's interesting kind of hearing what's coming out of Columbus. I mean, the narratives from that are that they too are in a little bit of a identity crisis. I mean, they're coming off that loss to Oregon that kind of rattled things a little bit. They had the bye. I think they're kind of also curious over there to see what they're going to look like. Kind of doing a little bit of a reset here. But I think for the defense, I mean, you got to take something away, and I think you have to at least make Ohio State throw the ball a little bit because I think they're going to want to run the ball. Popularity there.
Bruntz, last thought here before we get you out. We got about 60 seconds left here. Just it might seem like a dumb question, but I think there's a heart to it. I wonder if you pick up on it. If Nebraska wins the toss on Saturday, do you think they like to defer or do you think they like to receive?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an opportunity if you take the ball and you do something with it to set the tone a little bit. I think Nebraska and Matt Rule, historically have said, well, we want the ball in the second half, but I don't know. It might be a situation where they legitimately want to prove something and maybe kind of throw the first punch. And I think in this situation there might actually be something to that. I mean, in some ways it would be a signal to the team, look, we're not here to just not get blown out. We're here to maybe walk out of here with a win.
Bruntz, what's for dinner?
From my stupid question to that.
Schmidt, this is painful to admit. I honestly don't know. I'm going to be scrambling
Mac
the second
and
I get off the
cheese.
phone here.
I don't recommend a quarter pounder with cheese.
Mac and cheese at the Bruntz.
It might be that on a Tuesday here.
Oh, yay, Dad! I love it. All right, Bruntz, be good. We'll see you in Columbus, bud.
All right, enjoy, guys. We'll see you.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity. Let's talk with Papa Sirles, a little Indiana remorse, and Here come the Silver Bullets at Sirles71_HSK. Used to be the Twitter handle. The new handle is
at JSirles71.
Bang. See, you were ready to correct me, and I kicked Saban a butte. Sort of. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Yeah, it's starting to gear up here with agent season and getting guys committed and doing that whole thing. And then obviously hunting season's right around the corner. So duck season opens up on Saturday, try and get some deer hunting in. But, man, last weekend was about as kicking the balls as you can ask for as a Husker fan.
It was bad, and you come out of a bye, Sirles. You've lived this, and you want to be clean and locked in and crisp and no rust and ... And none of the above was very real other than, well, Indiana. They looked incredible.
Yeah, and we got to give credit to where credit is due. Indiana's a very, very good football team. I mean, what that coach has done coming from JMU, bringing a bunch of his players who were winners, right? They're used to winning, and bringing them over there and then executing on a high level. Everyone bought into the belief there. That program has a chance to be Big Ten champ runners, right, and go to the end. And so as bad as Nebraska played, you got to give props for Indiana for being ready to play and not taking their foot off the gas.
Sirles, as we begin our look ahead here, and we'll spend more time on Indiana, I'm sure, here, but
do we have to?
What's
I want to know what the hell happened.
You and me both, dude. I mean, I turned on the tape, right, because I get the tape, and so I watched the TV copy through 2 minutes into the second half, and then I was like, I'm going to go listen to Greg Sharp and mow my lawn. But, you know, when I turned the tape on, because you can't hide from the tape, and it was an all-out effort of bad, right? I mean, it was everyone took their turn. I mean, from the first play of the game to the last play of the game, guys just not executing, guys not being in proper position, some guys trying to play hero ball and trying to force the big play and being two guys in a gap or not over pursuing and all those things. It was as train wreck as you can be. And that's something that you would hope that when you look at this Nebraska football program, where the culture wants to be, where you want to build as a program, these are the type of things that are priority one cannot happen anymore. And for something like that to happen in Coach Rule year 2 and the strong start that we had definitely raises a lot more question marks than we would like to see.
Sirles, in your experience, when you get your teeth kicked in like that, how difficult is it to keep the wheels from falling off, especially with this particular circumstance, one of the top teams in the country looming at their place?
Yeah, we're going to find out a lot about this team and a lot about the character of this team because, yes, when you come back and I heard Rule say they watched it as a team and all that, you can be nitpicky and, oh, well, your footwork here, that. But at the end of the day, it's more about, men, you didn't respond well. You didn't respond well to adversity. You didn't respond well to getting beat up and punched in the face. And we want to pride ourselves on being a physical football team and all of the above. The number one thing is fight. You got to fight, and you got to fight for 60 minutes, regardless of what that scoreboard says. And I just didn't quite see the fight. And so this week, knowing Coach Rule, knowing how he went after the team last year after the performance against Michigan and the way that we came out and performed after that, I know that he's going to be hard on these kids this week. He's going to have physical practices. He's going to do all the things that he needs to prepare this team with. But at the end of the day, whatever 11 guys are out on that field have to come out and be ready for a fight, and it's gut check time.
It is. Jeremiah Sirles with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Sirles, the response part, that's what I wonder about. And I think there's a handful of guys that will go about it the right way, but it takes all 11. And there's a history here, man, of response to adversity with guys on the team. And when it gets downhill, it goes bad.
Yeah, and that's something that is going to have to just continually be worked out. And unfortunately, history has a tendency to repeat itself at times. You have to eventually break the cycle, right? Eventually it has to happen. And I'm not saying it has to break the cycle of we walk into Ohio State and we beat this team. But if we come out and we're competitive with this team and we give ourselves a chance in the fourth quarter to possibly go win it or possibly have a chance to make it a one-score game late in the fourth, that's the type of growth that you want to see from a program development standpoint. And that's the kind of response I'm looking for. Is this is going to be the most talented football team we play all year. It's not even close. I mean, this is a farm team for the NFL, has been for a decade now. there's no better way to come out and try and right the ship than to go against the best of the best and bring your A game, right? That's the way that you stop things from spiraling, is from an all three phase perspective, offense, defense, and special teams. You have to play your most complete football game, right? Better than we've had all year long, including the wins and the close loss to Illinois, to the blowout against Indiana. It has to be everyone playing their best football game for 60 minutes.
Sirles, Matt Rule talked last week about embracing being the underdog. We saw the result on Saturday. It's another week where you really got to embrace being the underdog. What does that mean to you in this moment, embracing that underdog role?
Yeah, I think underdog is one of those things where you assume that you're not going to win. I don't think Nebraska is going into this game thinking that. In fact, as a player, you can never think that. You can never step out on that football field going, well, we just want to keep it close, right? That's just a loser's mentality. You have to prepare this week like, yeah, no one thinks we can win, but we think we can, right? That's more of the underdog mentality is, yeah, I don't care what the outside world says. I don't care what Schmidt and Elijah and Sirles say and their talking heads on their radio show. Like, we're preparing like we're going to go beat this football team because we know that we can. That's the mindset that you have to prepare every single week, whether you're playing UTEP or Ohio State or whoever. The mindset doesn't change. The outside world will change, and the views of how people look at you and to perceive you as a football team will change, but you cannot fall into that embracing the top dog or the underdog mentality. As a player, you can't ride that wave. You have to approach every single week the exact same.
Jeremiah Sirles with us here, Hail Varsity Radio at JSirles71, One West Sports, former Husker standout, NFL vet for 6 years plus. So we talk about how the response needs to be with Nebraska. Let's talk about the offense and that response, Sirles. And Satterfield spoke today and touched on needing to commit more to the run game. Part of me is, all right, dude, figure out what you can do well and lead on that. Part of me, the other side of that coin is, I don't know what they do well on offense. And I'm not being a jerk. I'm honestly saying, what's their identity? It's been all over. It's all right, let's throw the deep ball, the back shoulder. Okay, let's try the screen game. Let's try and be power football from time to time to say we ran the football. Well, they've not been great at it. You have a talented quarterback, but you haven't really given him a ton of help. And what do you do moving forward?
Yeah, that's been my issue for really the last 2 years is I haven't been able to put my thumb on we are X football team offensively. Right? What are we? Are we a power football team? Are we a passing football team? We kind of are a jack of all trades, master of none, which is not the place you want to be as a football team, right? You look at all the top tier football teams in the country, they're either air it out because they've got the unreal talent on the outside, or they're going to ground and pound and go for it because they have the guys up front and the tight ends and the backs to make it happen. We're trying to figure out where our strength of our offense is, and the strength of our offense is our quarterback, but he can only get you so far, right? Because he is fully reliant among the 10 other guys around him in order for him to do his job at a high level. And last year with Harburg, it was kind of this, well, we have a running quarterback, running football team. Dylan's not a threat with his legs. He can create and gather some yards, but he doesn't scare any defensive coordinators of turning the corner and going the distance. And when that's the case, the running game really has to be buttoned up from the guys up front. Right? Because so many times the quarterback's never accounted for in the run fits, usually, and especially when he's not a threat. So that means that there's going to be an extra guy in the box. There's going to be a safety over the top and all those things. But what's really concerning when I watch this Husker offense is they're not selling out to stop the run defensively, right? Teams are playing shell coverage and saying we can stop the run with just our 6-man, 7-man boxes. We don't need to load the box. And when that's the case, you're taking away everything from this offense, because if you can't run the ball against a light box, that means that they're playing coverage behind it, and there's no exploiting it because guys are in too deep zones. And so Satterfield's in a tough spot. He really is, because I watch the tape and go, I don't know what we are. And defensive coordinators watch the tape and go, well, they don't know what they are, so I'm going to press them, right? I'm going to press them and force them to show what they want to do. And when that's the case, it's just a really tough place to be as an offense.
Sirles, what's your overall take on Satterfield's offensive scheme? Because we discussed this yesterday as well. What do you call if you're Marcus Satterfield? kind of hard to say because Nebraska's offense hasn't been executing anything that they've been calling. Do you think the scheme needs to change, or do you think the guys running the scheme need to change, if you kind of pick up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, it's not as easy to say to change the scheme in week 8.
No, yeah.
Right? You can't just, throw out the drawing board, let's go into the lab and draw stuff up all over the board and see what happens here. The scheme has to be what it is because that's what you practice from day one of spring install. It's more about the execution from the Jimmies and the Joes, right? Every play is drawn up to score, right? Like when you draw up a play, this guy blocks this guy to that guy and push cracks to that guy, and then the running back makes the corner miss and it strike up the bands, yay, right? But none of that matters if you don't execute. And that's been the number one problem is no one is executing 11 out of 11 on a consistent basis. Offense is tricky, right? Defensively, you can have one guy that executes and creates a negative play, right? Great. The defensive lineman disrupted and there might've been a bust in the back end, but the D lineman got to the quarterback and ruined the play. Offensively, if you have one guy that busts, the play's dead, right? Dead on arrival. Right? You have a receiver that runs a wrong route and he's the first read. Well, now we're trying to scramble because that was supposed to be where the ball goes. That's what the play is designed to do. And now we have to try and get into second read, which was not with the play design. And now there's a safety over the top. And oh crap, I held onto the ball and now I'm sacked. Right? Or hey, it's a run play to the outside. The tight end gets bookended because it doesn't take proper footwork. So now we have to cut back too early. There's the unblocked man. Right? That's what's happening to this offense is it's not one guy. I can't pinpoint and say he's the problem. That guy's the issue. Everyone is taking their turn. And when you're inconsistent and every guy's taking their turn at one point in the game, the execution factor just plummets.
The point total is kind of plummeted when it comes to Big Ten play and scoring. And it's a low-scoring league a lot of times, 24-21 type ball games on a good Saturday. It's, pretty tough right now when you're not getting big plays on top of just a rhythmic offense. Sirles, would it make sense to see more Harburg or have that quarterback run element? Maybe ask Dillon to keep on some zone reads just as a threat to bolster your run game?
It's a conversation to be had. It's almost to the point now, though, where when you have a Harburg package, the defense can just adjust to it, right? It's not like when Harburg's the starter or your running quarterback is the starter, there's always the threat of it. When you just put Harburg out there, the defense is just going to have a check, right? Like, hey, 10's in the game, whatever, check to this, and we're going to get into this defense that allows us to account for the running quarterback. So, yes, maybe Dillon pulling it on one or two things and creating 5 or 6 yard gains might open some stuff up a bit. But I do think going into this week, playing against a team like Ohio State, they're going to have a tendency sheet of what we like to do, how we like to do things. So maybe early in the first quarter, throwing Harburg out there in a special package that we put together this week isn't a terrible idea to try and put Ohio State on their heels a little bit, right? Hey, make them go on the sideline and adjust in real time, right? And then try and get back to our normal bread and butter, whatever that may be. But I do think that it's just one of those things of, yes, maybe that's a little bit of the answer, but that's not something that's just going to turn this run game all the way around.
Defensively, Sirles, need to get your take on what Nebraska, when they are stopping the run well, why that's happening, and then conversely, last Saturday, again, fast forwarding to this Saturday in Columbus with those two beasts in the backfield, when it goes sideways for Nebraska stopping the run against an offense that can do both, why is it going sideways on the line?
Yeah, the number one thing that happened this week is we didn't get any penetration. For the first 5-6 weeks of the year, we're seeing Nash and Ty and Jamari Butler and MJ Sherman in the backfield, right, in first and second down, and creating push on their side of the line of scrimmage, which then allows our linebackers to run free and pull the gun and trigger and go make the tackles. Last week, there was very little penetration, which means that running back's hitting the line of scrimmage at full speed without having to make a cut. And now he's one-on-one with the safety because there's a hat for a hat. I thought Indiana had a really nice game plan of stretching us out laterally and allowing those running backs to kind of move with the wall and then put one foot in the ground and get north and south. If you just attack this Nebraska front just straight on, I think that's the strength of us. We're strong, we're big, we're physical. If you get us moving laterally, you're kind of taking that stinger away from our defense a little bit and making us move, and then there's the holes for the cutbacks because one guy's not in his gap or one guy got cut off on the backside. And that's kind of the blueprint that I saw Indiana do. And every great offensive coordinator is a copycat league at every single level. They're going to look at that Indiana game and go, okay, here's what they did. Let's do a version, whatever our version is of that, and test and see if Nebraska got this fixed during the week.
Sirles, will wind it down and just give you a thought on Saturday. You've gone into games like this as a underdog, and you've played well in some haven't gone great either. You know, what's the message this week? We've heard from the players that they're ticked off, but can they truly flush Saturday and just go play free?
I hate the term playing free, right? Because playing free, it means that you just you haven't been, right? Like, what do you mean you haven't been playing free? You get to play the greatest game ever imaginable, made for children, and we get to do it at a high level, right? Playing free for me is the standard at which it is. You should always play free. You need to play with controlled aggression and controlled rage, right? That's the way you do it. Channeling that ticked offness or whatever you want to say and channeling it properly. Because if you just go out there and kill everything, it's not going to work, right? You have to be understanding, hey, I can't force the big play, right? If I'm a corner, I can't sit there and go, hey, I'm going to sit on this short route because I know I'm going to jump this and it's going to be a pick six and I'm going to be oh, shoot, there he goes over my head, right? Or if you're a running back, you can't sit there and go, hey, we need to get a big explosive play. I know if I bounce this, it's one-on-one with the corner. I'll stiff arm him and up the sidelines, and here we go. That kind of ball and that kind of hero ball at times can be the death of you as a team, because now you're staring at big explosive play on offense, a negative play on defense, and oh boy, playing free or whatever you want to call it means playing within the scheme and allowing the stuff to come to you. Play within it. 11 out of 11. Play with what you need to do, but also you got to have more fight. Yeah, you got to have a little bit more fight than we showed last week.
Well, we'll see if Nebraska puts their dukes up or loves the taste of blood, Sirles.
I hope it puts the dukes up. I can't handle another one of these.
There it is. Jeremiah Sirles with us on Hail Varsity at Sirles, at JSirles71. Sirles, appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Go Big Red. Have fun in Columbus.
There he is, Sirles. Good to spend time with him. Love getting his perspective and email to get to. Open phones here till 6 if you've been trying to get in. 489-1240. 800-825-5865. Sean emails in, Farmer Sean, and says, gentlemen, maybe you guys have touched on this already, but going back a few years ago when Iowa boat raced Urban Meyer's talented team, and then a few years later, Ohio State got steamrolled. I remember that night game at Purdue by the Boilermakers. My point is, both of those OSU teams had more talent than Nebraska has currently, and Iowa and Purdue probably had much more talent than Indiana does right now, maybe more. Not to make excuses, and I'm not comparing OSU and Nebraska's program level, but sometimes crap happens even to some of the best. We'll see what this team's made of going forward. Yeah, there's always a chance Ohio State doesn't gear up for Nebraska. There's always a chance Ohio State spent the last 2 weeks on Penn State. There's always a chance that Nebraska finds themselves and finds something working offensively, that there's confidence. There's always a chance the defense plays angry and frustrated and takes it out on somebody. But it just is a slim to none and slim left town. But I agree, Farmer Sean, that we'll see what this team's made of. And Sirles put it best winding down that interview about fight. Because while Rule, and I believe him, said that the team didn't quit last Saturday, they got physically annihilated to the point it looked like they just didn't want to be there. So either what they prepared for wasn't what they saw, and the coaches didn't get them ready, probably part of that. Part two, Elijah, you have a reality that this team just needs to man up when adverse situations hit. And that's way easier said than done to a team that's just been beaten down. When you lean with these 6-year and 5th-year guys, by now they're supposed to be the one that leads you out of the fire, and instead they're worried about getting burned.
Yeah, and one quick point to add about, because I think it's a fair point to make. Yeah, Purdue beat Ohio State, Iowa beat Ohio State. Fair points. College football is a wacky
Those Ohio
game.
State teams didn't respond to getting an avalanche dumped on them.
Yeah, and that's the second point I was going to make. Is
those lowly 11-2 Rose Bowl teams of Urban's final year.
That second point I was going to make is both those wins, Iowa did it at home, Purdue did it at home, Nebraska's on the road. Iowa, to beat Ohio State, had to put up 55 points. Purdue had to put up 49 points.
Right. Yeah. Point total. I think Ohio State's losses, I think you got to go back. Michigan State got them during the D'Antonio year. Oregon got them. Michigan. That's about it.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Guys are pissed off, We're not going to live on what happened on Saturday. We're going to keep moving forward, but guys are pissed.
Isaac Gifford, he is, and he wants to do something about it Saturday. Was asked earlier today how and what he's seen from his teammates since last Saturday. And, we'll see what type of effort goes out there for Nebraska. Real quick, more from Gifford, cut 3 here. And the off balance that Indiana's offense provided Nebraska's defense, that run game, that pass game that really caused issues.
Yeah, they punched us in the mouth. They obviously wanted it more than we did.
That's pretty telling from Ike, a 5th-year guy. I know he's a senior, but did he come back for a 6th? You're carrying the one in your head.
I'm doing math. He was...
Because him and Ty are there, right? They've been there for a long time.
Yeah, I'm doing the math in my head. And
he's got to be a 6th-year guy, isn't he?
When did I graduate Southeast? When did he graduate Southeast?
I called both of your games, which means Schmidt is old. So loose lip says it's October. I know.
5th-year senior.
5th year. Okay. Thank you. 5th-year guy. Yeah, I know. And October was better a year ago than this October's turned into be, but I don't know, man. Pretty interested in getting to Columbus. Never been there.
You're right.
And interested as we'll be at the Marriott doing our shows there, the Ohio State Marriott. That's where we'll be Thursday afternoon, and then Friday for the Hail Varsity Road Show, and then the weekend edition of Hail Varsity, and then Real Red Reaction. So we'll have a full boat of Columbus, and then a Sunday live Average Joe Sports Show pod with you and I in Columbus.
Yeah, which we'll have to discuss with the gentleman. I think we might have to move it up slightly.
Yes, we will. Usually it's 10:30, but our flight doesn't gets out at, 1?
Yeah, how about this? Schmidt and I getting the direct flight from Columbus back to Omaha.
That is winning. Another piece of good news, along with Bruntz and BC and Mitch and some of our friends that'll be there covering Nebraska, Ohio State. Uncle Mitch is going to be there. Uncle Mitch from our time in Boulder. Uncle Mitch Lundstrom's he's flying out.
And how about this for the real fans of the show who've been listening for years? You remember pre-COVID, our former producer Will Bauer is going to be in town. So he's going to come see us too.
Love it. Who's on?
Paul.
Paul, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. I'm just really confused by one concept. How can Satterfield be making this much money and be working with this team for this much time and not have a clue as to what our identity is? Because it's not showing up on the field. How can they not know what we do best? How can they not be putting that out there? And the scary question is, or answer might be, they are. This is the best that they can do. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, whoa, Nelly.
Yeah, whoa, Nelly's it.
Nailed it, Paul.
Yeah, and that's just it. You can be mad at the guy all you want. You can be. Thanks for the phone call, Paul. For the results, and you yourself as a high-paid OC, top 20 paid OC, 1.6, something. It gets lost, but it's a lot of money. You need to produce better on offense. But these are the the groceries you got. So if ramen or tuna helper or a manwich is all you can make, then make the best damn manwich there is. Back tomorrow at 4, our dear friend Garth Glitzman will join us. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.